We have some breaking news right now. A federal judge says new DACA rules that limited applications and renewals are invalid because the man who signed them, Chad Wolf, the acting DHS director, was not legally serving as Homeland Security Secretary when he signed them. Maria Hinojosa is joining us now. She's the anchor and executive producer of NPR's Latino USA and the author of the book, Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America. So first, Maria, I just want to get your reaction to this brand new ruling that just happened within the last hour or so. And how should DACA recipients be thinking about this right now?
Well, look, in terms of DACA, everything, we're in a lame duck period with a president that is very unpredictable. We don't know. We know that he says he likes DACA, but actually in terms of actual support for DACA has been very hard to read. I would say that the activists would say it not hard at all. He's not interested in really supporting it. So at this point, there's a sense that what Joe Biden has said is that within his first 100 days, that he is going to not only re-up DACA, but also begin a process of legalization for all of the people who, by the way, are not kids anymore. If this was happening about a decade ago or so, these may have been 18 years old who are now 28-year-old, 20-year-olds who are now 30-year-olds. So they are productive members of the society. For there to be any kind of restriction on DACA doesn't just impact them, their life, their emotional status, their family status. It impacts the American economy, which we need to grow right now. So at this point, there is unfortunately a lot of fuzziness around DACA. But as usual with the Trump administration, we didn't know who was in charge and who was not. So it's typical kind of more discombobulated information from them.
And I should mention Chad Wolf, his title is acting DHS secretary. I think I said DHS director there in the intro. But immigration policy, we know, was a motivator for some voters. I'm wondering, because of Biden's win, is the immigrant community breathing a sigh of relief? What are you hearing?
Well, I think the immigrant community is what they're talking about is the fact that even though the parents were undocumented or the grandparents were undocumented, the next generation below them went out to vote. And before going out to vote in 2020, they spent the last decade or so, I'm thinking of the place like Arizona, organizing for something like this. This is what it looks like, the long haul, Anna, in terms of what organizers and activists on the street and political activists are thinking of. When something like SB 1070 happens in Arizona, which is the most restrictive anti-immigrant law, in 2010, they're not realizing that that's going to create a backlash that is going to result with more voters. So immigrants are saying, we went to the polls, we impacted policy, we turned the state of Arizona, potentially with the push of immigrant voters in Georgia, other places like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin. So a sigh of relief, but sadly, as you know, if you've been watching my Twitter and other Latina analysts' Twitter, the Biden administration was present during the time that President Obama deported over 2.5 million people, separating them. The president who has deported more people from the interior of the United States than ever before. Joe Biden needs to own that in order to move forward. And I think what immigrants want is a complete throwing this out and starting from zero. This is not working. And finally, Anna, this is not an immigration crisis at all that we are facing. It's down to zero. I'm in Mexico now. People are not thinking about going to the United States now. We have an international human rights crisis where women's uteruses have been taken and babies and children have been taken from their parents.
It's so disturbing. I do want to ask you about the pandemic as well, because we have some new COVID hospitalization data from the CDC, and it reveals a very stark racial divide. When adjusted for age compared to whites, black people with COVID are 3.9 times more likely to be hospitalized. Native Americans and Native Alaskans, 4.1. Look at this. Hispanic and Latinos, 4.2 times more likely to be hospitalized than white people. Why do you think that is?
Look, we are, what everybody is talking about, this is revealing really the structures of inequity in our country and our society, right? And also Latinos. I just got to Mexico. We're talking about people here. The neighbor where I'm staying at my mom's home, he died from COVID early on. So there is a question of our health being compromised if we are obese, if we have diabetes. And also what happens is that we have this thing about not going to the doctor at the beginning, but going at the end. But what it really is showing is that our country, the United States, is dependent on Latinos and Latinas. Right now, I'm thinking so much about El Paso. Who's there? Think about the population of El Paso. One last thing, though, that I will say in a conversation around COVID. Also, no more family gatherings. Familia. No es el momento. This is not the moment to be having family gatherings inside or even outside. And that is hard for many Latinos and Latinas and everybody. But that has got to be the message. Las fiestas de la casa se acabaron. No more at-home parties, period.
Thank you so much, Maria Hinojosa, for that message and for your thoughtful just analysis of what's happening right now. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.